All right, so good morning, everybody. Welcome to the online safety series for parents. And we're actually going to be launching one for children as well, because this conversation has to be balanced. Family safety, family digital well-being is something the whole family has to be fully involved in, the children and the adults. So we cannot have one-sided conversations. But for this series, it's an online safety series for parents specifically. And the reason we're doing it is because a lot of our children today, if your child is millennial and younger, and most of us have children who are, Gen Z, Gen Alpha, the Alpha generation, they are all digital natives. That means they were born into a world that's fully digital. They don't know a world pre-digital. We're the last set of parents actually who have one leg in the digital world and one leg in the analog world. All our children and generations to come will only know a digital world. So how do you feel about that? You're actually one of the special parents left, right? Because what it also means is that we are parenting from a place where we need to straddle the difference for our children, and going forward, there'll be no difference for them. All they know is this digital world. But with that said, we must make sure that we're at the forefront, raising them in an environment that has a lot of opportunities, but also has a lot of challenges. And we have to be careful about that so that we don't ignore what the challenges are. But at the same time, we don't want to minimize what the positives are about the digital world, or make our children, right, think that it's all bad. It's not all bad. There's some good and there's some bad. And that's what we want to be talking about, is how to balance the challenges and opportunities, how to reduce the negatives of being online, and how to increase the positives. So today we'll be highlighting some of the online safety areas you need to be aware of as a parent. And if your child is even 2 years old, 3 years old, you can start to keep this in mind, because the earlier you start training them to be responsible digital citizens, the better for everybody. All right, so just in case you've never seen me or heard me before, my name is Yeti Williams, and I'm the founder and CEO of Lagos Moms. Lagos Moms started myself when I was a new mom. It feels like many years ago now, when I had a 2-year-old and a toddler. And, technology then was just starting to really become part of our lives. But my children are now 14 and 12, so this was quite a long time ago. And I decided, you know what, it might be great to have a community of like-minded parents, mothers, but now we also have fathers in our community who want to talk about raising children in the digital age. And I could never have thought that the digital age will become what it is today, but it really is an integral part of our lives. So I'm a certified life coach, I'm a parenting coach, and I'm a neuro-linguistic programming practitioner, which, as I summarize to my children, it just means that I understand how you can use your brain to achieve the life that you want. Our brains are muscles, and we can teach it what we want it to do so it can show up for us. And it's really important that we keep that in mind, that the brain is a muscle, because all our children are still developing and growing. So if we don't help them right now, we put in the right foundation in place, it becomes much more difficult later, especially because we all know that digital consumption, the responses we get from being online are made to be addictive, and they're releasing certain hormones into our bodies. And these hormones being released, even for your children, are affecting how they're wired and how they're seeing the world and how they're looking for pleasure. So online is great, but when you realize what's going on in your child's development as well, you realize that you really have to be at the forefront of ensuring that they are using social media, digital media, screen time the right way. So the plan of this session this morning is I'll talk for maybe about 30 minutes thereabouts, but please keep all your questions, because I really want this to be interactive, and the Q&A will come at the end. So if you have any questions, just drop it in the Q&A box, which you'll see a tab at either the top or bottom of your screen that says Q&A. Drop your questions in there, and when we get to Q&A time, I will pick it up. All right, fantastic. So let's get going. Now, let's talk about some of the reasons why your children use the internet. There are several reasons. And when we understand why something is happening, it's much easier for us to show up and help our children to be safe online. But we can't just always assume that they're on there for the wrong things. So let's talk about some of the reasons why your child is on the internet. So some of them are on to share funny pictures and videos. right? Some are on to, give me a second. Okay, some are on to do assignments, to do research, to share photos and memories of themselves or family, to connect with friends and family, and for entertainment. So there are several reasons our children are online, and they're all neither good nor bad. Some are good, some are maybe in between. And the in between probably comes under entertainment, because if your child is online for entertainment, how do you determine whether what they're consuming online is appropriate or not? So whether the people that they are watching their videos and their YouTubes and the people they are talking to in video games, how are you sure, right, that they are actually talking to the right people that they should be? So that's part of why we're talking about all of this now, so that as a parent, you know how to start having those conversations. Because a lot of children are meeting strangers online, and a lot of them don't actually know that because somebody said there's somebody online doesn't mean that's not who they really are. Let's remember that our children are wired to be innocent. They're innocent. They haven't seen a lot of the things we've seen. They don't necessarily know that there are bad intentions out there. They are showing up, innocently. And it's in that innocence that people who are groomers, and we'll talk about what online grooming means and how it's on the increase. People who are groomers, and they know that a lot of children have not been taught by their parents how to stay safe online. So they're able to take advantage of that gap. Okay. So let's talk about some of the bad guys on the internet. We've been talking about what are some of the things to consider, but we don't want parents just coming from a place of fear or saying that everything about being online is bad. Of course not. There's a lot of good. Our children can learn, they can reach out to people that they might never meet who are great for networking. There's a lot of positives. But when your children are really young, you want to make sure that they are aware of what the downside is when they're in the online space. And these are some of the things we will talk about. First of all is when you share too much information online about yourself, your family, and your friends, it can be dangerous. Now, we mentioned earlier some of the reasons children are online are to share information about themselves. But when somebody shares too much information about themselves online, it can be dangerous. And so we have to teach our children that there's a limit between sharing enough information and sharing too much information. But how do you help them to determine when it's too much? The next bad guy on the internet really is the intruder. That's the hacker. And hackers just, their job is to hack your account, your system, to get your personal information without permission. And once they get it, you have no idea what they're going to use it for. Sometimes cyber criminals are actually using it for identity theft. They're using it to access people's information negatively. And a lot of adults are also falling victim of intruders and hackers as well. Personally, my Lagos Moms Instagram account with our 52,000 followers got hacked just about 3 weeks ago, and the account has been disabled. So even when you know the best, even when you know as much as you could about being online, it's possible to be hacked. So we have to help our children avoid being victims of hackers. Then the fisher, which is really the person who's a clickbaiter. Those are the guys who want to access your personal information by tricking you. They don't have any good intentions. They literally want to just harm your device with malware, right? So these are, how do you know a hacker? Sorry, how do you know a clickbait, a fisher? That's someone who shares a link with you, right? And when you click on that link, they can introduce, viruses into your computer. They can steal your details. And these two that I've just mentioned, the hacker and the fisher, it's on the increase. Like the amount of the number of incidences are increasing unbelievably. So we need to really realize that there are cyber criminals out there. Some do it for fun, and some are actually criminally minded. So we need to make sure that our children know what to look out for, and even you as adults, you know what to look out for. And they won't talk about the troublemaker. Those are the guys who just want to hurt people's feelings online. We've all probably been on social media where you see some really horrible comments, and children are also suffering this. So that's where you have the cyber bully. And the cyber bully is the person who just comes online to bully people. And in children's cases, it's really, really difficult for them to navigate this because, physical bullying is something you can actually see. You can tell that a child is being bullied. Maybe a teacher passes and sees a child is circled by different people and they're calling him or her names or even physically hitting them. It's easier for parents to step in, for teachers to step in, because physical bullying, you can see it. Unfortunately, with cyberbullying, it's silent. And we're having a lot of reports where nobody actually knows that a child is being cyberbullied until it's too late, because there's no visible evidence that a child is being bullied when it's happening online. So we'll also talk about that because it's also on the increase. So I hope this is just picking up some of your interest and making your ears kind of open up, because we can never talk about these things enough, especially if your child is younger than 16 years old. You must know all of these things. And then catfishing is another one that's also on the increase. That's when somebody creates a scenario, paints an avatar of themselves online, and it's not really who they are. So I can say my name is BC and I live in America, and I'm 14 years old and I want to be your friend. And then I say that I'm actually in town. So could we meet up at I don't know, at Hans and Renee or something, and your child doesn't know, and your child goes on to meet this person, and they're nowhere near what picture I just painted. They happen to be an adult. And once again, these things are happening also in Nigeria. Okay, so let's talk about the tell-it-all. That's the person that shares way too much information online, and a lot of parents are actually also guilty about this. These are the parents who your child is starting school. You take a picture of your child in their uniform in front of your house or in front of the school saying, I'm so excited, but they're starting school today, proud mom, proud dad. Yes, you're happy your child is starting school, but guess what? You have just given information out that you didn't really need to. And who can identify maybe what makes that too much information? You've put your child's name, you've put your child's uniform where maybe the logo is showing. Maybe you took the picture in front of your house. And guess what? With geotagging, anybody now can actually pinpoint where you have shared their picture from. So I can know that you live on, Bisiolatilo Road, for example, in Lekki, because you have shared that information. If I'm criminally minded or there's a cyber criminal who's looking at that information, you have given them that information, your child's name, where you live, the area you live, the child's uniform with the logo. So guess what? Once again, they can zoom in and they can identify what school your child goes to. Of course, most of us are not thinking about that. Most of us are just sharing because we want to share. But the minute you put something on the internet or on your social media and your social media account is not private, guess what? Anybody online can see it. And you don't always know what somebody is going to use the information for. And even when your account is private online, guess what also can happen? Your account might be private, meaning that only people you accept are following you. But anybody nowadays can take a screenshot of any information you put out there. And that's information that they have. So as a parent yourself, you must pause before you post anything online and think about it. Is this giving away a little bit too much information? So when we can learn how to pause before we post anything, we can then teach our children that before you post anything online, you need to pause and ask yourself, could it harm your reputation or somebody else's reputation? Is this something you should be sharing? And then you definitely want to teach your children to avoid sharing any personal information publicly. So address, phone number, any passwords at all. Nobody should know your child's password except you, the parent, of course. But you really should not be sharing any personal information online, no matter who's asking you. Now, sometimes the clickbait, the phisher, all those links you will see online, children don't know. So a child could see a link that says, click here for a chance to win a PS5. Most children who have not been taught that is too good to be true, and that could be a way to introduce, malware or hacker into your system, they're probably going to share that information. They're going to click on it. And when they click on it, you don't know what it's going to ask them. Some of them use that knowing that when somebody clicks on that, they can use it to get information from them. So teach your children that they shouldn't be sharing public information out there. They shouldn't be sharing information that's too close to home, and they should always pause before they post anything. And parents, it really starts from you as well. You need to look at what you're sharing online, because if you share too much about your children and your family and your life, guess what? You're painting a picture for yourself. You're like dropping breadcrumbs about yourself online everywhere. And I'm not saying live in fear and not share what you want to share, but just be mindful that whatever you're sharing online, somebody is seeing it, and somebody can be using that information somehow in the future. Okay, and this brings me to an app called Snapchat. I'm sure some of us have heard of it. Children use it a lot. It's very popular with the younger generation. And one of the things with Snapchat, for example, is that it actually follows, it's the default setting unless you turn it off. It literally can pinpoint where somebody is located, whether in the airport, at home. Somebody abroad actually was able to call his mom and say, oh, wow, I see that Peter, let's just call him Peter. I see that Peter just got home from school. And the mom said, how do you know that? Guess how she knew? From Snapchat. She was all the way in the UK, but Snapchat showed, the avatar showed how her brother was moving and showed that he had just gotten onto their street and had turned into their house. So this is how detailed some of these apps are getting with geotagging. They can literally know who you are, where you are, and how you're moving. So you want to teach your children that as well, that sometimes without even sharing your own information by yourself, the apps that you're using, if you let them track you, know exactly who you are, where you are at every single moment. Nobody needs to have that kind of information about you. Okay, let's move to the next bad guy we want to talk about, and that's the hacker, right? The hacker is the one that wants to just access personal information without your permission many times, or sometimes they trick you. And when they get your information, you have no clue what they want to use it for. So you want to teach your children a couple of things. Teach them to always use a unique password for each account. I know a lot of us use the same password for a lot of the same accounts, or for the same accounts in different places. A lot of us use the same password rather. And while it's easy for you because you don't want to forget, and it's a lot of challenges or wahala to remember several different email accounts, their passwords, your different accounts, login details. But when you use a simple one, it's too easy for the hacker to guess. So always use a unique password for each account. Your passwords should actually have about 8 characters, and there should be a mix of characters. So it should be numbers, uppercase, lowercase, @ exclamation mark. I know it seems like a lot, but what you can do is start getting into a routine about it. So you have a sequence. Maybe you are using a combination of your birthday, your children's names, a favorite food. You want to try and find a way to create what's what I'm looking for? A set of steps of how you will create passwords. But you cannot use 1, 2, 3, 4, or use your name, or use your children's birthdays. Those things are too easy to guess. And of course, because you want to, you're thinking, how will I remember everything? There are a lot of apps that you can download that are secure, and they will help you keep track of all your passwords somewhere. So this is just as much for you parents as well as for your children. Remember that you want to make it unique, you want to make it complicated so that it's not easy to guess. And when you're using accounts, always try to log off and teach your children this, especially children that might be using devices in school. You want to teach them to log out, right? They should always log out when they are done with a session. Now, some things you shouldn't do. You shouldn't share personal information, like we've said, such as your name, phone number, birthdays, as passwords. Hackers can easily guess that. We've talked about that already. Teach your children not to share passwords. Nobody should ask them for their passwords. And if, even a friend, because sometimes friends are the ones that cyberbully children. Right? So friends are just doing some children are doing silly things nowadays just to get a rise and just to trend and to be popular. So just tell your child, they shouldn't share passwords, period, unless it's with a parent. That's different. And I think for parental monitoring, you should have your children's passwords to their devices. You absolutely should. So if your child cannot share their passwords with you, then you should wonder what could they be hiding. But you're supposed to monitor them, right? Now, when you're using public computers and devices as well, teach your children to always to make sure they never tick the remember your password, because it's a public computer and a device and anybody can use it. So these are just some things very quickly, high level, that you can do to protect yourself from being hacked or your account from being hacked. Now we're going to talk about the phisher. And this is the person who you can see on the left-hand side, right? The phishing site and the phisher. It looks like an actual fish with the mouth open. But if we start in the middle, number 1, where it says phishing email. So that's the email that you get that is the clickbait. So that's the email that could say, click here to win a PS5 or something like that. Or in our case, and how we got hacked, our Lagos Mom's Instagram account, we got an email saying that our account had been verified and we should click on a link to complete the process. And the URL looked very legit until it was actually clicked. right? It was after it was clicked that the team realized that might not have been, was that actually from them? And but by then the issue had started, right? So we want to teach our children that don't just click on any link. Once a fisher sends an email and the person opens it and clicks the link, a series of things can happen, right? Immediately, they can steal your credentials. All it takes is to click the link. They can steal your credentials. And from there, all the things start to happen. You don't know what the fisher has in mind, but if you just see how this picture is flowing, that's literally what kind of happens. They know what they want to do. You are the innocent victim, and you want to teach your children that, because so much can happen. And for parents as well who do online banking, it's very important to realize that these are some of the ways that cyber criminals are getting access to your information. Maybe you get a text saying they want to update your login details, click here, you do that. This is what can kind of happen. And then they get access to your accounts. All right, so this is how they pretend. The fisher pretends that they're from a reputable organization or that they're someone you know. So help your children to identify this. If the offer seems too good to be true, let them know it probably is, so they should run. They should always pay attention to if the URL of the site matches the name you're looking for. Sometimes they will fool you. People will go and register a domain that looks very similar. But if you teach your child to pay attention to it, whether, they will start to, they have to become like detectives in this online world. That's the truth, because there's not enough protection yet for us in the digital world. There's not enough protection. So everybody is wide open, right? Imagine if we had no police stations, or we had nowhere to report problems to in our communities. What's happening is that in the online space, there's literally, is wide open. Anybody can do anything. And yet our children are operating in this space. So we have to teach them some of these things so that we can protect them from the downsides of being online. Teach them to look at the website address, that's the URL. Something will be off when it's not from the real people. Now, if the person or the site is asking them to reveal personal information, usually, again, it's a sign to run. If it's asking us, put your name in here, put your address, put your date of birth, all of those things are personal information, and you just want to teach your children not to share that information, period. It's easier to teach them not to share it than to start to say, sometimes it's okay, sometimes it's not okay. Just say, if any site is asking for your personal information, just say no and close it. All right. Then you want to also teach them how to look for, secure websites. So, and that's for you as well. If a website has the HTTPS in front of it, it means that it's a secure website. So before you ever put in your credit card details or buy something online or whatever you're doing online, try to start to teach yourself, does it show a green padlock? Is it using HTTPS? Does it show that it's secure? Be very careful what you click on. And lastly, teach your children to never download items from any site that they're not sure about. Somebody says, click here to download this, click here to download that, and it's not a site you know about, you know of, or you verified. That sometimes is a way to download malware and dangerous things onto people's laptops and devices. Now, especially when it comes to apps as well, make sure you teach your children that if they want to download an app, first of all, they should ask you. And second of all, they should make sure that it's from the Google Play Store. They shouldn't just download an app from anywhere on the internet, because these are some of the ways that you introduce all this malware and questionable things into your systems, and then your account gets hacked, your information gets stolen, and it can get very messy. Okay. Then we want to talk about the troublemaker. We talked about it briefly before. This is going on a lot, and a lot of it is actually around cyberbullying, around name calling, harassment. People take pictures of somebody without asking them and share it online. We're also seeing a lot of, in terms of troublemaker, we're seeing a lot of sexting also on the increase, which means children are talking to people online, usually groomers, and then they ask the child to send a picture of them, in different positions. And it always starts very innocently. Oh, you look so pretty. Oh, I wonder what's under there. Can you show me? And sometimes children just don't know. They think this is a friend who's their age. But remember, for a groomer, they know exactly where they're headed. They're trying to get the child into a position where they can ask for inappropriate, intimate pictures, or they try to meet up with the child later. And please, parents, let's realize these are not just stories that we're saying for sensation. they are actually happening. So you want to talk to your children about that. A stranger online is a stranger. Who are you talking to? Who are they following? Who's contacting them? If your child has a phone, has an email, has a device, is on WhatsApp, social media, whatever it is they are using, once they're on the online world, it means that they can be contacted by anybody. So you don't want to just fool yourself into saying that my child is not online, so I don't have to worry about it. Even if you don't give them a device or they're not online, guess what? Their friends probably are, right? So every time they go to a play date, they go to a friend's house, if you haven't taught them about what to look out for and what to protect themselves from, they can still become a victim, even though you said my child is not on social media yet. Their friends probably are. So do they know what's appropriate when they're in their friend's house and the friend is using his or her device? So let's make sure that we don't just think that, it doesn't apply to you. It does. Okay. Now, the troublemaker in summary is just a bully, cyberbully, troll, groomer. They want to spread lies, rumors, gossips, and it's happening a lot. As you try and think back to when you were a teenager in school and some of the things that you did then. Now, for someone like me, when I was in secondary school, of course, there was nothing like digital media or social media, right? But even then, we had bullies. We had people that were mean, that just wanted to spread rumors and lies and gossips. People that were just horrible students for whatever reason, or they were horrible to other children. Now, nowadays, that same behavior pattern is still there. It has just moved online. So what that means is that this is all happening online now. And unfortunately, for a lot of children, they don't speak up soon enough. Some of them don't know how to recognize that it's actually bullying, cyberbullying. They just think, this is how people are now. No, it's not okay. Some of them also don't know what to do if they're a victim of this. So you want to teach them certain things. Teach them to block anybody that's a bully. So if somebody comes online, is cyberbullying them, is pressuring them to send personal information or to send naked pictures or to talk to strangers, teach your child that they have the power to block the person. And a lot of the social media platforms now help you block people without necessarily the person even knowing that they've been blocked. So teach your children that they can block people who they shouldn't be following, or people that make them feel uncomfortable. Teach them to stand up for themselves and others. Teach them not to pass on gossip or rumors. Because of fake news and so much going on in the world, guess what? The average person doesn't know whether something they're seeing online is true or not true. So teach them to pause when they see something or they read something, before they just retweet it, share it, pass it on. Teach them to hold on and kind of say, well, is that really true? How am I sure it is true? Many times, all that it takes is that ability to pause and to engage your brain and to think. But once we're all reacting, that's when things go further than they should. And children need to learn this, because everything for them is online first. They share on social media. They share, if they're sad, they share it online. If they're happy, they share it online. Everything is online. So you want to teach them to also pause before they believe anything they see online and before they share online. Teach them to talk to their parents or a trusted adult. So even if your child can't talk to you, make sure, we say it's a community. It takes a community to raise a child, or a village to raise a child. Make sure your children have aunties, uncles, older people in their lives that you trust, that they can talk to, because things will happen. So you want your child to be comfortable enough to know that, what, I can talk to my parents, and there's some trusted adults in their lives they can talk to as well. Especially as your child becomes a teenager, it's likely that they won't really tell you everything, right? Remember when you were a teenager, you didn't tell your parents everything, and it's okay, but you want to make them comfortable to know who they can talk to. Now, also teach your child that if somebody's bullying them, sometimes they just want to take screenshots of repeated occurrences, because if you need to ever report to school or to the social media platforms, you need to have evidence as well. And lastly, teach your child that a stranger online is still a stranger. Okay. All right. I wanted to talk about fake news. We're getting to the end of this, so I can have time for Q&A, and then I'm going to give you one case study as well that happened, and I'd like us to discuss what we think, a parent should do in this situation. But fake news and disinformation is on the rise like never before, because anybody now can post any comment, any article, any story online, and they have an audience for it. So we absolutely need to teach our children to be digital detectives. Anything they're reading online, they have to be able to identify if it's fake news or not. So look at these two stories on the screen. Which one do you think is legitimate? Which one do you think is legitimate? It will just be interesting to see what you think. You can either put it in the chat room or just note it for yourself. The one on the left-hand side says Danny Young reveals why he took down Tiwa Savage's video from YouTube. And the one on the right says Danny Young speaks on YouTube ban of Tiwa Savage's one. Now, usually the news that you see online, when the heading is very sensational and emotional and, very antagonistic sometimes, it's because it might not be true. The left-hand side story is not, it's not true. That headline is not what really happened. The one on the right-hand side is the one that is actually legitimate. So you also want to teach your children to know how to identify when a headline is just clickbaity or sensational, and who is the one publishing it. So on the right-hand side, The Guardian is a well-known, reputable, source of information. So you want to also teach your children to kind of know who to look for, what articles to click on, and how to pay attention to whether something is actually true or if it's just a blog that's taking it and making it sensational. Because what happens nowadays online is somebody posts something, you Google it, and it's going to come up at the top. It doesn't mean it's legitimate. So teach your children to look out for those reputable sources of information, so that they don't just see a heading like this and believe it and run with it, because this is too common nowadays. Okay, we don't want our children to be victims of fake news, and neither do we want them to be peddling fake news. So teach them how to pay attention to things they see online and what to believe. Okay. All right, now let's start to summarize. We've talked about a lot, right? We've talked about hackers and phishers and cyberbullying and sharing too much information. So let's think about some of the takeaways for how to raise our children to be responsible online. You want to teach them to pause and think before you post. And this ties very closely to something called digital footprint, because whatever you post online stays online. I mean, recently Google released something that helps you report if you feel that a picture that has tagged you online is inappropriate or you didn't give permission. There's now a process to try and have pictures untagged, but we don't know how effective or efficient that is. The best thing to do is to think before you pause. Is to pause before you post anything online. So teach your children that. Remember, we said in the teenage age, a lot is happening, hormones are being released, there's a lot of emotions happening. If your child gets trigger happy and is always with their phone, and every time they feel a certain way, they share it online, that can usually be too much information. So teach them to pause and have a conversation about what's appropriate to share online. It's never okay to share your picture with a stranger. It's never okay to take a picture of you, without your clothes on. There's certain things you should just have a conversation with your children about, and don't think they should know. You'll be amazed some of the things that they don't know because nobody talked to them about it. Teach your children to be kind to others. Kindness can never go out of fashion. And what has happened, and this is actually backed by research and science, is once we're behind a screen, we're holding a device, most people are very, they almost forget that they're talking to another human being. So people actually are quite mean in the online world because they're detached. There's something, even the worst bully sometimes in front of a person, they might rethink what they say. But because it's this online world, anybody can share anything. People are actually much meaner than a lot of people expect. So teach your children, number one, to be kind to others. And when you teach them to be kind to others, they will also be able to pick up when something going on online is not kind, it's mean. They'll be able to know that. Because it's very sad when I talk to young adults who didn't know that certain behaviors online were actually considered cyberbullying. They didn't know that because they just thought that's how people are now. Okay, let's teach them to be respectful. And this is both online and offline, right? Just the same way you tell your child, be respectful, say please, say thank you. It's the same way they should do those things online. In fact, I read something recently that said that a lot of young children now are becoming quite rude because when they're talking to Siri, they are just backing commands, or Alexa. Parents, I hope you know what that Alexa, Siri is. Those are all those on your phone. When you say, Alexa, what's the weather today? Or Alexa, play my music. Children that are growing up in all these very smart homes that have a lot of this access to these devices are getting quite rude because they just back orders at these things. And because they're learning to interact with robots almost before human beings, some of them are picking up some very rude habits. So, it's almost as if we're in a sci-fi movie, but it's real life now. So teach them to be respectful. Teach them to always respond, not react. And what does that mean? Reacting means you just react. You don't think about it. You just react. You see something online, you react, you share a comment, you retweet, you comment, you like when you shouldn't be liking something. But teach them to respond means that they are thinking about what they're saying and they're actually responding. For this age, for this generation, the ability to pause is magical. Just teach them to pause and think before they react or do anything online. And then teach them also not to, that they shouldn't say something to somebody online that they can't say offline. Once again, this is from two sides. It's from the side where your child shouldn't be the bully, and also it's from the side where your child should know that that doesn't feel right. Why is that person saying this thing? It's probably a red flag. Okay. Teach them how to ask for help if they need it from you. Remember, we talked about it earlier. It takes a whole village to raise a child, and I say now it takes an e-village as well. So who should they go to if they need help? If they're not sure about something, who can they ask? Because they're so used to googling everything. They can find all the content they need online, but it doesn't mean it's accurate. So teach them how to get the right help in the right context. And then you yourself be positive. Teach them to be positive and open to learn. As parents, we need to unlearn and relearn. I'm constantly going to my children, asking them about different things going on online. When I see something trending, I will ask them about it. And as parents, we all have internet, right? Please just spend some time figuring out what's trending, what's viral, what's going on, so you can have relevant conversations with your children, not from a judgmental perspective, but from a place of, can you teach me this? Tell me about that. It helps them. And to help them be safe online, you kind of need to know what's going on in their online world. But if you don't even know what's happening in their online world, guess what? You cannot keep them safe. All right. And then lastly, teach them to ask for permission before posting something about someone else. And when it comes to consent, this is really important. They should always ask for permission before they post something about someone else. And personally, I've started to do that as well, right? So sometimes, not a lot, but sometimes I share information or things about my children online. I always make sure I ask them for permission. I'm doing that because I'm teaching them that I want them to always know that they should ask for permission before they share something about anybody online. You have to ask for permission. So teach them to ask for permission. And you parents also ask for permission, especially when they're older. Make sure you're asking them, is it okay if I share this? All right. Now we're going to talk about parental software, and then we're going to get into Q&A. We all need to have parental software to protect our children online. It's one thing to talk about all these things, help them to be aware of the dangers online, teach them what to do, what not to do. But as a parent, you have to put in some parental software. I don't believe that there's any question about if you should. It's just about which tool you'll be using. So this is one particular one that's free. It's the Google Family Link. And when you download it, it allows you to actually monitor your child devices. You can set screen time, you can restrict certain kinds of content, you can approve or disapprove apps. It's really good because it helps you to protect your children, and it helps you to release the apron strings little by little as they get older. But when your child is getting their first devices, the worst thing you can do is just leave them. Just say good luck and throw them into the online world. It's very dangerous. So put these things in place. You can set screen time. You can say at 9 p.m. all devices should shut down. Those are the ways you want to use parental software. You can block out things like pornography and adults, gambling and smoke. You can block out certain things as well, so that you're protecting your child online as much as possible. There's another app that I use called Custodio that I've used in the past as well. That is not free, it's paid for, but it also allows you to put it across several devices. So there are many options out there. Use the one that works for you. But what you must do is have some parental software in place that you install on your children's devices, laptops, smart devices, phones. Please, please, please make sure you do that. Okay. And yeah, this is it. We're going to do Q&A now for the last 20 minutes. The online safety series is brought to you by Lagos Moms and supported by Google. We actually applied for this online series. I reached out to them and I said, look, a lot of our children are digital natives, and parents and children need to be aware of how to stay safe online and how to protect their families online. So this is a series that we bring to our community. So feel free to always reach out to us and ask questions you might have about parenting in the digital age. And of course, you can always, share this information with other parents, because that it takes a village to raise a child. I say it takes an e-village. And that means that it's not good enough for just me to know how to keep my children safe online. You need to know, your cousins need to know, your neighbors need to know, because all our children are going to interact somehow, either in school, in the playground. So it's important that all our children know how to stay safe online, because they are all living a digital world. And it's much better for us to have a wider group that understands what it takes to keep our children safe. Because there's nothing worse than you keep your children safe online, you protect them, but then they go to their cousin's house down the road, or they go to their friend's house, and the friend's is wide open, right? And the last thing I want to share with you is this club that we're kicking off in January next year. The questions I get regularly, in fact, 90% of the questions I get now as a parenting coach, people that reach out to me to help them with something or the other, or they need advice, or they need me to talk to their children, a lot of it has to do with digital. Either the screen time, what they've seen online, how the child is feeling online, the child is being bullied online. There's so many things, it's all around screen time, technology, what to do. And so we've realized that we cannot talk about this one time and that's the end of it. So we're kicking off a club where essentially, I call it Parenting Digital Club. So every month we're going to have this kind of webinar. We're going to be talking in detail about raising our children in this world. I'll be bringing things going on in the world to you. There's so many things that when I list them out, I listed them out the other day, and it's almost like a curriculum for parents, the things you need to know about, so you can even help your child. If you don't know, how will you help them? So anyway, we're inviting you to join that club, which kicks off next year. And it's a small investment, really. And if you invest, if you were to join us today, we're giving 1 month free, and we're kicking off in January. So Nifesi, who's part of the team, is going to put the link in the bio. You can pay in Naira, you can pay in dollars. I mean, yeah, Naira, pounds, or dollars. And so wherever you're located, we're kicking off in January, and we'll be having live sessions, we'll be having one-on-one to really discuss what's going on in the digital world. So with that, thank you. Thanks for tuning in and listening to this presentation today. I'm going to open the Q&A now and see if we have some questions, because I note that we have questions here. Hang on. Why is it not? Give me 1 second. Okay. All right, here we go. How do we check the children when they use incognito mode to browse online? The truth is you cannot. It is not possible to check what your child does when they go into incognito mode, because, in fact, for parents who don't know, do you even know what incognito is? Incognito mode is when a child goes online in a way that you can't even see what they did. The history is not saved. And so once they're done with that session, it's done. And I remember the first time I knew about it, but I didn't even know my child knew. I think he was about 5 years old, or even was it between 5 and 7 years old? And I think I said something like, "What are you doing online? Let me see your computer. Bring your computer." And he told me, he said, "I can just delete my history and you won't even know what I saw." At 7 or so. So you have to realize that the children nowadays, they're so aware about what's going on online. You cannot afford to be a dinosaur. So unfortunately, if your child uses the incognito mode to browse online, there's no way for you to know what they're doing. So, you have to have the conversations with them. A child that goes incognito, why are they going incognito? By the time you're going incognito, it's because you don't want somebody to know what you have done. So you want to have conversations with them about that. Why are they doing that? What exactly is it that they're trying to hide from you? Because there's no way for you to know what they've done if they go that route. Okay, someone is asking, will you get a recording of this webinar? Yes, you will, because I know it's a lot of information. So we will share the replay of this webinar for anybody who joined today, who registered. So whether or not you're able to attend today or not, you will get a copy of this webinar. Okay, so I'm going to be here again for some time, and we'll continue to answer questions. I hope you've seen the link in the chat room for joining the Digital Savvy Parenting Club that I said we're kicking off next year. And the idea is we're going to be talking about raising our digital citizens. We're going to be having sessions for parents. We're going to be bringing experts in. We're going to be talking to children as well, because there's a lot going on in that world. There's so much happening: body image issues, self-esteem issues, how it's affecting mental health. There's a lot that we can't possibly cover in 1 hour. But the idea of this session today is just to raise awareness of online safety and what you need to keep in mind so that you can talk to your children appropriately. All right, I have a question here, and it comes from a parent who wants to know what to do. So they waited till about 15 years old and they gave their child a device at 15. And now the child is talking to people on WhatsApp inappropriately. And the way they know is that the person who set up the child's device set it up so that everything the child shares on WhatsApp, the parents can see it. But the child doesn't know that the parents can see it. And the child, this girl at 15, is sharing all kinds of, in fact, her chats are making the parents cringe and they don't know what to do. So what do you do in that situation? First of all, what I would say is at 15 years old, your first role is to protect the child, period. It's not about saying, no, I don't want the child to know that I was looking at her stuff without her knowing. Yes, there's a place for privacy, but there's a place for parenting as well. You are raising a child, and at 15, he or she is young. And if they make the wrong decisions and do the wrong things at that age, it can have long-term implications. So in this particular case, because the child is on WhatsApp, and mind you, these are parents who say, my child is not on social media. But WhatsApp is, in fact, if you have a phone number and anybody has your phone number, they can contact you on WhatsApp, right? Exactly. So what do you do in that situation? They waited. The child was 15. They thought he or she was old enough and smart enough at 15 to know what to do. But a 15-year-old is still a teenager. So what I advise those parents, and it was a question, I'm making it into the bigger story because somebody asked me here, but it's something that just happened last week actually, where a parent got in touch about this situation. Number one, you need to have a real talk with your child. You probably want to take the child's device for a little bit of time. You want to make sure that you've educated the child about what to do online and how to talk to strangers online and what is acceptable online so that they know what to do when it comes up. Because it's not a matter of if it will come up, it will come up. Somebody would get in touch with them and ask them to share something they shouldn't share. So you want to have those conversations before you give the child the phone. You want to put controls in place and let the child know that you're going to put these controls in place because you're protecting them. Let them know where you're coming from. I'm protecting you. It's my job to protect you. I'm your parent, I'm your mother, I'm your father, I'm your caregiver, and I want to protect you from the things out there. And that is the reason why we're putting these controls in place. So have that conversation before you give your child a device. And if by perchance you've already given your child a device, they already have their phones, you can't take it away now, but you can install this software, for example, make sure they drop their devices with you every night so that you can at least be sure that when it's bedtime, it is bedtime. So I hope that answered that question. And I used it to paint a scenario as well, because, it's a reality that I'm seeing too many times. So we need to make sure we avoid that as much as possible. Don't give your child devices without protection, and make sure that you're talking to them regularly about what they should be sharing and what they should not be sharing online. And then make sure you're checking. Talking about it one time is not enough. So don't say I spoke to my child January 2019 about how to be online, and then since then you haven't said anything. It's an ongoing conversation. Okay. All right, please go ahead.
Okay, good morning, everyone. I'm not yet a parent, but I just felt that I should join this program because I saw it on my friend's status and I said, okay, let me see what it's about. And I really gained a lot, even for someone that doesn't have a child yet. I've gained a whole lot. So I want to say that I have a niece that she's 13 years old. So I think, this year, early this year, she has a mobile phone. So she started using WhatsApp. So she got involved in our school. They have these WhatsApp CDs that they watch, all these sort of pornographies and all different kind of things at the JSS level. So she stopped going for lessons and all that. She became, I don't know how to describe it. So the way our mom attended to it, she said I think they seized the phone and they tried to talk to her. They also beat her. I don't know if that was a good approach. What would have been the best approach to that kind of thing? How could they have done how could they have attended to that situation? Because she's just 13, but she has a huge stature. She looks older than her age. She looks like she's in her 20s. So I think she believes she's older now. She feels she's rude. Her behavior is just, I always try to avoid, I don't want to have anything to do. So I don't know how I can help. Is there any advice you can give me? I can attend to this film. Thank you.
Thank you for bringing that up. And it's really, when it even comes to discipline nowadays, what I found is that disciplining nowadays is actually a bit more challenging because of the influence of the virtual world. It's no more just you and your child. The child goes to school, come home, and what they do is within that contained environment. A lot of disciplining now has become very challenging because the children are being influenced by the online world so much, even more than what's happening in school and their homes. Disciplining now is much more challenging than just, do I beat my child or not? When they're exposed to things they shouldn't online, unfortunately, it becomes tougher. So in this case, yes, you said they've taken the child's phone, they've beaten her. I wonder if that has changed anything, because nowadays children can still get online whether or not you take their phones away. So unfortunately, at 13, she's already gotten initiated into watching porn. And when all of those things happen, getting a child off what they've seen, helping a child kind of regain their innocence, it's a much harder process than ever before, because once they started to see those things, usually by the time a parent knows that the child has been watching porn, for example, it's gone on for quite a while, right? So by the time they find out, the child has gone down that road for a long time. So it's getting the child back. If you want to get in touch with me, because there are a lot of deeper questions I would like to ask to be able to really say, how do you help this child? She's just 13. So yes, she looks bigger, she's grown, but guess what? She is just 13. And when it comes to the teenage brain, I've been doing a lot of brain science research as well. Teenagers' brains develop from the back, which is the limbic nerves, which is emotion and pleasure and how they feel. The prefrontal cortex, which is the front of the brain, where we make decisions, where that's the thinking part of the brain. Guess what? It doesn't fully develop in a child's brain, excuse me, until that child is in their 20s, 21 to 25, thereabouts. So at 13, the child is not able to think right. They are still learning. Their brain is evolving during the teenage years. So it's very important that pre-teens, before they become teenagers, parents have a plan, a guideline. What am I going to do to make sure that when my child is 13, 14, when they enter the teenage years, they know what to do and how to behave online? So please get in touch with me so we can go into more detail. This child needs help. And at 13, it is too young to say that the child is difficult and you are avoiding them. I'm understanding why you're avoiding them, but at 13, if it's not handled properly, this child will go down a path that can be avoided. And then we can talk about certain things. Yeah, parents beat children, but sometimes I say beating is reacting. You are reacting to something the child has already done and seen. Does beating fix anything? Maybe not. Is the child even addicted to porn? And we're seeing that a lot. Children addicted to porn. How do you do that? So I'm seeing a lot of questions flying in. So let me quickly join and try and see what I can get through before we wrap up in a few minutes. So another question here is, you joined late, you want to know how to put protection on your children's phone. Okay, once again, if you want to get in touch with me, do that so I can walk you through some of the steps. But if you go to Play Store, you can download the Google Family link that I mentioned, which is a free one. So when you download it, they take you through the steps. You have to download it onto your device, get your child's devices, download it as well onto their devices, and you have to sync it. Okay, so it sounds complicated, but it really isn't. But the first thing you can do, go to Google Play Store, download the particular app, Google Family Link. If you're using Apple devices, then you can use Screen Time on Apple. So in fact, that might be a post for us to do. Nifesi, let's do something that helps people, step by step, what you can do to download your child's parental software to your child's phone. But please, if your child is 16 years and younger, you must have parental software. There's no question about it. And guess what? Some of them are free. Some of them are paid. So there's no excuse. There's absolutely no excuse. That's one thing we must all take away from. If you've never done it, please make sure you do it. Grace, if you need more help, kindly reach out to me and we will help you with that. Okay. So I'm trying to see, the next question says, when will there be a child version of this? My 8-year-old is interested, even though she practically sat with me. Awesome. We are going to have a child session, and we're planning to, if you fill the form out, we've asked on that form that, are you interested in your child also going through this training? We have one that's specifically targeted to children. So the way we present it is different. And if you said yes, we're planning to run a couple of series, probably over the holiday period and early next year. We will let you know when that's coming out. So please stay in touch. You're anonymous question, but you can message us if you want to privately, so that we know that you are interested. And we have to run these sessions as well for children. We've done it in the past, and it was amazing when a 5-year-old went home and told her dad that, you know what, it's not everything you see online you should believe. And the father was like, wait, how did you learn that? And she said, oh, a woman came to talk to us in our school and told us that because you see something online doesn't mean it is true. So before you believe anything you see online, you have to check and verify that it is true. The father couldn't believe it. This child was 5 or 6 years old. So you'll be amazed that when you start early, the children can learn. Imagine a 6-year-old learning that it's not everything I see online that's true. When he or she grows up, it's part of their DNA. They will know that, no, now I have to check this thing. Is it true? They know. It just kicks off in their brain. So thanks for that question. All right, this is more of a comment than a question. That thank you so much for this program. You are welcome. You know, I'm a parenting coach. I love doing this. You know, the children are the future. We need to raise them right. But guess what, parents, we have to step up because our children are living in a world that is so different than the one we knew. So we cannot be saying in my days. In your days and these days, they don't even belong in the same sentence. So we need to be more intentional. Let's bring the good things from our days, but let's remember that their days, the life that they're living, the world that they're in, the digital age is very different, and it needs our parenting to evolve accordingly. Okay, so I've answered that question as well. Do we have any other questions at all? Remember though, this investment next year is one of the best investments you can do for your families. And this special we're giving today to give you a free month next year is today. Click on the links and join. It's an investment for your children, for your family. Imagine on a monthly basis, we're discussing something that's pertinent, that's useful to raising children in today's world. Everything is affected by digital, whether it's discipline, family time, focus, attention issues, quality of sleep. So many things are changing and almost going upside down because of the world that we live in today. But if we are aware as parents, if we unlearn and relearn, we understand our own parenting style, we understand our children's love languages, then we can be more intentional as parents. And parenting is one of those things that you don't want to go in the future and start to undo and say, I wish I had known. We can avoid that. So I'm inviting you to join the club because, I know it's my club, but the people that have joined the program, we have good things to say about it because together we realize that we're not alone. All right. Thank you for joining, and wishing you the very best, wishing you success in your families and raising your digital natives. Parents, we will win. We will win. We can figure it out, and we will help our children to succeed in today's day and age. So with that, we are done for this morning. And if you have any questions, feel free to email me, contact us on our website, Instagram at Yeti Williams. Visit the link in the chat, lagosmoms.com/digital savvy parents. You have to become digital savvy. Let that be your promise to yourself. All right. Thank you everyone for joining today.